Hello, my name is Selina. I'm here at the AUB's lab. It's warm and toasty because it's early August. So we removed our honey supers from our colonies not too long ago. And according to our mite washes, varroa mite levels are somewhat high. So we decided here at the bee lab to treat some of our colonies with a synthetic miticide, which is Apivar, and some of our colonies are going to be treated with an organic miticide, which is Apiguard. The reason why we chose those two treatments is because we still have brood in our colonies, which excludes some other treatments from being effective, as well as the temperature range right now makes sense for us to use those treatments right now. And with that, I want to take you to the bee yard and show you how to apply those two treatments. All right, so now that we decided on our two treatment methods, a synthetic one, which is Apivar, and the organic one, which is Apiguard, we are in one of our yards and are going to apply those two treatments, starting with Apivar that we are going to put in this colony here. With Apivar, with any treatment actually, I would recommend to read the label before you go out to your bees, which I did before. So Apivar is coming in strips, and the label says that you would add 1 strip per 5 frames of bees into your colony. So the first step would be to know the size of your colony, which is what we are going to do, estimating the frames of bees in this colony. And we are going to do that pretty crudely, so to speak, but the Bee Informed Partnership is using this method as well. What we are going to do is we look down at both the top box as well as the bottom box and estimate how many frames that are covered with bees by counting or by looking at the coverage of bees in the seams between the frames. And when I count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. After that, I'm going to tilt the box and do the same from the bottom, looking at the bottom of the frames. Would stick to seven frames of bees in the top box. And do the same for the bottom box. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames when I look from the top. Look at the bottom of the box, which I didn't like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 frames of bees in the bottom box and 7 frames of bees in the top box. According to the label, in both boxes we have more than 5 frames of bees, so both boxes will get 2 strips of Apivar. And now the next step is to find the brood nest, which is where we want to place the mite treatment. All right, so as you can see, I already put the top box back on because I added the 2 strips of Apivar in the bottom box. I did find the brood nest, and now we're going to do the same for the top box, trying to locate where the brood nest is, removing the feeders so I have more space. I guess generally we would expect the brood to be in the middle, especially what I've seen in the bottom box. There's some brood. This one. Oh, there's a nice brood frame. Second one. There's not a whole lot of brood up top, but again the label says max 2 strips per box. So we're trying to target the brood area here in the middle. So I'm going to put 1 strip between those 2 brood frames that I found. And the Apivar strips have those attachment ledges, so you could dog ear it. We at the lab use toothpicks because they have like a hole up top in the strip. So you push the toothpicks in the hole and you have like a nice holding system. Then you slide the strip between the two brood frames, roughly in the center, and push them back together so that the bees can walk on the strip on both sides, since Apivar kills the mites through contact. So the more the bees walk on the strip, the better. The label also says you have to have at least 2 frames between the 2 strips that you add per box if necessary. So I'm going to leave 2 frames out and add the second strip. There's some brood on this frame and there's a good bee coverage on both of those frames. So chances are that a lot of bees will walk on this strip. So I'm going to place it again in the center of the frames with my 2 toothpicks and push the frames back together so that everything is nice and tight. And that's it for the Apivar treatment. And we are going to go to another colony to apply the organic treatment, the Apiguard, here in a minute. All right, so I opened another colony, which is going to receive our organic treatment, which is Apiguard. And I did the same procedure as previously. I counted or estimated the frames of bees, and I had 7 frames of bees in the bottom box and 8 frames in the top box. So it's a pretty decently sized colony. The label of Apiguard doesn't necessarily say you have to estimate frames of bees, but decide whether it's considered a strong or a weak colony. That would determine whether you would want to give them a full dose of treatment or only half a dose in the case of a weak colony. But since we have a strong one, we are going to apply the full dose. And the label says you should put the treatment on top of the brood. I looked through the frames, and there were only 2 frames of open brood downstairs, and there are 5 frames of brood upstairs. So based on that, since the majority of brood is upstairs, I'm going to put the treatment on top of the brood nest in the top box. Right, so Apiguard comes in 2 sizes, either the bulk bucket as we have here, or like individual servings, so to speak. If you have the bulk bucket, you might want to stir the product up a little bit, since it can separate between the different ingredients that are in there. So I'm going to stir it. Again, I have my gloves on, and I also put goggles on actually, because the label recommends the user to have those protective gear on. Once you stirred it for a bit, ideally you have a syringe handy, or there are also measuring spoons, but we are generally using a syringe. For the full dose, you want to suck up 51 milliliters, which is roughly 50 grams of the product. So I'm going to do that. It's pretty viscous, so trying to be as accurate as possible, because if you overdose your colony, that can actually lead to pretty severe mortality in both brood and adult bees. So you don't want to, suck up 60 mil instead of 51. That's not going to be beneficial for your bees at all. All right, so I have 51 mils, and I'm going to apply that to the colony now. So there are those serving plates, so to speak, which are cardboard squares that you can buy from your bee supplier. And we are going to put the serving tray on top of the brood nest, the brood frames that I located. And then might want to do that actually on this hive over here. You are going to push the product on top of the serving plate, would space it out so that the whole plate is covered, so it provides a lot of surface to to evaporate. It's going to be nice icing. Once you have your product on the serving tray, again, you're going to put it in the hive on top of the brood frames that you located. And since the product has some height to it, we are actually going to add a spacer, so to give the bees some room to to give actually the product some room to evaporate and not squish it with the lid. Apiguard is a treatment that you have to renew after 2 weeks, so you have to come back after 14 days, and hopefully the bees have, or like the whole product has evaporated, and then you have to add a second dose to your hive, just to keep that in mind. In case of a weak colony, you could do half the dose, or in extremely hot weather, you could also apply half the dose, but you have to do it in 1 week intervals. So 4 treatments of half dose intervals for a full-size colony. And yeah, that is that for the organic treatment that we wanted to show you. And fingers crossed that both the Apivar and the Apiguard are going to be efficient in killing the mites on the bees.